Hi, my name is Gary, and I'm an independent researcher, and I enjoy studying the Bible and spirituality and history, and I've been doing that for many years. And a couple of years ago, I made some interesting discoveries regarding the human knee and its correlation to the Bible and spirituality. And that's what I'd like to share with you with this very brief video. So if we go to Wikipedia and look at the knee, you'll see it says that the knee consists of two joints, one between the femur and the tibia, and one between the femur and patella. And when you read about the knee, there's pages and pages of stuff here, but I'm just going to be focusing on something that's really, really fascinating, and that's something called plica. It's actually called knee plica, and that's going to be the focus of a lot of this video. I'm not an expert on any of this stuff, folks. I'm just looking at this for a couple of years, and only really 1 year by discovering certain facets of this that are incredible. But that's what we'll look at is the plica. So what is knee plica? So when you go to WebMD, you don't even have to click on the page. Just go there into Google search, and it says knee plica and plica syndrome. A plica is a fold in the thin tissue that lines your knee joint. And most people have 4 of them in each knee. They let you bend and move your leg with ease. Okay? So when you Google search knee plica, you'll get a lot of fascinating pictures or drawings of this plica. And this plica is absolutely incredible stuff. And that's what I'm going to spend more time talking about. So we're going to spend a minute looking at the one of the plica. It's called ligamentum mucosum. So let's just look that up, and you could search it on Google. And it says the ligamentum mucosum, also known as the infrapatellar plica, is an embryological remnant of a synovial septum. Septum. That's an interesting word, folks. It originates from the anterior intercondylar notch and broadens as it traverses the infrapatellar haffa pad to attach to the inferior pole of the patella. So this plica is also called the synovial septum, and we're going to take a look at this in a little more detail. So when you're looking at this plica, you'll see it kind of looks like, here's an image here, kind of looks like it forms like a nose on your knee. Do you see this picture here? So when you look up, what is plica made of? You can just Google that. What is plica made of? What is knee plica made of? Very simply, it just says a plica. Let's see where it says. A plica is a fold of synovial membrane, most commonly in the anterior medial aspect of the knee. A plica is present in about 50% of the population. Is thought to be the remnants of embryonic connective tissue that failed to fully resorb during your fetal development. So I'll kind of speed this up a little bit. Essentially, when you look up the word ember, E-M-B-E-R, and you go down, and you'll see very interesting a word under the search. They'll say embrine. Embrine. That's almost exactly embryology, embryonic. Embrine running around a circuit. And then you have the idea of embers, and if you look up ashes, and you look up the word sinus, C-I-N-I-S, sinus, you'll see the word ashes again. So then you have other ideas about something called rhinology and reincarnation, R-E-I-N, reincarnation. So again, I'll try to make this brief. Essentially, if you look up and you study the word ash, and you study one key word called lie. So lie, L-Y-E. So let's just go to lie under Wikipedia. And lye, Lye, is a metal hydroxide traditionally obtained by leaching ashes, or a strong alkali, which is highly soluble in water, to producing lye. So lye is really fascinating, but I'm not going to spend 20 minutes talking about it. But what I'm going to talk about really quickly is basically the fact that these plica create lye, Lye, and this lye transforms into new life on the human knee. And I mean real life. I'm talking about real people living on your knee. They come alive from ashes. In other words, reincarnated ashes, reincarnated people come back to life through the plica. And this plica leaches ashes. And if you start looking at the word plica and leeches, I'm not trying to get scary or gross or anything, but if you look at the word leeches, it opens up another can of worms, but I'm not trying to get funny here. Just essentially, it opens up some incredible research, folks. And if you study leeches, I know it's a little gross to look at the stuff, and it seems like God has put some sort of supernatural leeches in your leg to remake people, replicate people from the plica. So that's why it's called, you replicate. You have the plica in there to replicate us back. So that's what's going on there exactly. So again, when you look up leech, there's two meanings. One is spelled L-E-E-C-H and one is L-E-A-C-H. But when you look them together, you'll kind of see that they're really correlated in an interesting way. And so when you look up leech, you'll see blood-sucking aquatic worm. And again, go down to leech physician, probably from Old Danish Lakey or something, enchanter, all sorts of meanings here to this word. But you go down, it says perhaps connected with a root found in Celtic or Celtic and Slavic from pi, P-I-E-L-E-P dash A-G-I, conjurer from root L-E-G, leg, to collect, gather, and so then you go down here, and the form merged with leech, L-E-E-C-H, form merged with leech, Middle English apparently in early Middle English also of God and Christ. The sense had deteriorated. Leech typically was applied only in... Alright, so I'm not going to read all that, but again, I'm not saying that Creator is a leech or anything. I'm saying that God put these leeches into the human knee to remake life, L-I-F-E, and kind of, especially the ligamentum mucosum. If you look at that and you study that one's incredibly interesting. Essentially, this ligament, if we study this really carefully, we'll kind of spray out or spit out lye, a form of lye. Remember, this ligaments are supposed to be made of stem cells, mesenchymal embryonic stem cells. So that's incredibly interesting unto itself. But it sprays out, some sort of, life onto the bones of the patella and to the condyles of the femur. And your act of walking brings back to life creatures and beings and all sorts of amazing stuff. So again, I'm actually working on a really 2-3 hour presentation here. It's a lot of stuff to go over, but essentially a couple of key words. If you look up the word spit, because what I believe these plica do is they spit out or spray out the lye onto the bones, and spit has all sorts of meanings. Essentially, but it does say interesting, spit, meaning the very likeness, folks, if you look that up. Or it does say sharp-pointed rod for roasting meat. And when you look up the word obelisk, you'll see it says small spit. And when you look up, for instance, other words too, like washing. Just the word washing has the word ash in it. Or the Washington Monument, which is an obelisk, and of course has ash in it as well. So some very interesting stuff, which I'll go over as well. And I'm not an expert by any means. I don't want you to think I'm like a professor or anything. Believe me, I'm just a regular person. Very humble. I'm grateful I could put out some of this research, and thank you. So I just want to add a quick little section here. Essentially, when you look up the word plica in Wikipedia, one of the results is going to be something called Capillaria plica. And Capillaria plica is a parasitic nematode. And a parasitic nematode is a worm, is a parasitic worm. So is the actual plica in your knee worms, or is it leeches? I'm not an expert on all this. And there's another word for plica, or another word for nematode, and it's called eelworms, which is interesting too. So it could be eels. There's a lot of interesting ways you could look at this. Another thing about when you research the leech anatomy, some leeches actually use the proboscis as a way to draw out the blood of their host. Like they have a hypodermic needle inside the nose, and it draws out the blood from the host. And that's what could be going on in the knee. The plica in your knee could have like a needle, and this needle draws out and draws in fluid. Like it draws fluid from the host, and then it draws it out by creating images on your knee. And it's very interesting when you look closely. If you had a magnifying glass to the areas of the knee, like the patella and the femur, you're going to see some fascinating images, and one of them is going to be the all-seeing eye. So when you look really close, it's going to be there. And so the idea of that is the all-seeing eye, AWL, all-seeing eye, and that could be the eye of a hypodermic needle, where it shoots out new life, and it creates actual images. These plicas, they create living images on your knee. It's fascinating. Of course, you need a really high-powered magnifying glass to see this. When you read a lot of the Bible, it talks about words like images and the idea of man being created from images and dust. And I'll just try to go to those passages if I could. So in Genesis 1:26, it says, "And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the fowl of the air." Okay, so we'll just stop right there for a sec. And you go down to Genesis 1:27. It says, "So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them." And again, if you could get yourself an actual femur bone, or which I don't have here, or an actual patella, which is the kneecap, and you put a magnifying glass, or interesting enough, like some sort of black light, which I could talk about later, but essentially you'll see images come to life there, and that's from the plica. I would imagine 100% from the plica, and these images are actually living in the film, living film, and that's when you look at the words Hollywood and stuff. I'll talk about it hopefully in a longer presentation. You look at these words, and everything will start coming clear here. And I want to go to a couple other passages of the Bible, which is 100% true. So let's look at Genesis 2:7. "And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul." And if you look at these words, images and dust, and also like the idea of ashes. So when you look up ashes, again, ashes, reincarnated ashes from people come back on the knee, and you look at Genesis 18:27, and it says, "And Abraham answered and said, behold now, I have taken upon me to speak unto the Lord, which am but dust and ashes. Again, this is pretty much a solution, a fluid, a lie, L-Y-E, a lie that is poured onto the knee, and it's like a film, a motion picture film. And they probably the knee makes different images through the plica, and for instance, the word dissolve, like the whole thing gets dissolved and remade. And I'll try to bring up a passage there about the word dissolved. All right, let's just look at Psalms 75:3, chapter 75, verse 3. And the earth and all the inhabitants thereof are dissolved. I bear up the pillars. Let's just look at Isaiah 34:4. And all the host of heaven shall be dissolved, and the heavens shall be rolled together as a scroll. Interesting stuff, folks. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but interesting, the word host of heaven. You'll see this word host a lot in the Bible. And we'll talk about that hopefully in a long, boring 2-3 hour seminar thing. But just some basic stuff. And hopefully I'm going to probably try to show an image from the kneecap, which is off of Wikipedia. And once you start really blowing up these images, and there's not really a lot of good ones on online, I don't see. But again, if you have actual kneecaps, this is not going to be on every human. This is probably on maybe a small percentage or half the population. I really don't know how many people are carrying this nation of people. But you just look at the. So when you look at the Wikipedia and you go to the patella, and you'll see a human patella, and you could blow up the image. But again, folks, it's a little scary. It's like some of this stuff. If you start looking at it, you'll start seeing that there's on both of your knees, there's a universe, like earth and heaven and all sorts of images and and anything. It's you could see where they get the idea for fairy tales and cartoons, and obviously all the religious books, they're all true because they're all based on, of course, God created us and the knee people. So all right, so you could check out the image, and thank you so much. Bye.